So I'm excited today to go through the Harry Potter store, the new store in the Flatiron in New York. This is the second part of a video that we filmed with Gabriela. She's the founder and creative director of Whereabout Studio, a retail strategy and design agency. In the first part, we looked at a lot of the design experiences. Today, we're going to talk about the design features and walk through the operational tactics. Gab, it's great to have you back.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to chat about this one.
That's great. So in the last video, when we recorded it, you talked, you're very excited about the store. In fact, I think you challenged the notion that it might not be a store itself because it's such an amazing experience.
That's right. It's definitely a mixed use storefront that has a mix of experience, theater, prop design, museum, all of that integrated into one space that makes you stay there for hours. That's what I did.
Well, let's drill down and look at some of those design approaches.
Yeah, for sure. So I just talked a little bit about, mixed use. That was a really powerful aspect to the experience. In the last video that I took you through, we chatted a lot about the use of store within a store. And that is one aspect to the store design strategy. But I do want to just take you guys through the idea of lifestyle merchandising. We've heard about this for years. And it's really easy to say like, oh, your brand should be on a table with a series of props around it to show where that product would be situated in the real world. That's one aspect. But the Harry Potter store took it to a completely different level. They designed their spaces like they would design a movie set. So not only were there set designers that were taking props from the actual movies, both replica props or the actual props, and putting them in glass cases, but every nook and cranny of every space that you were in were designed. So the music, this was completely sensorial. The music changed in every single room. Everything from the floor to the ceiling were huge sculptures and different theatrical displays that brought you into the world of that aspect of the story. They had 7, 8, 10 different books in the franchise and so much rich storytelling that went on that when you were shopping these stores, you were in the book. You were in a scene of the book. And that was it was mind blowing. I mean, as a designer, it was something that I was getting giddy around, and I'm not even a huge fan of the books. I'm not as much of a fan as people that were probably in these spaces with me.
What else did you notice whilst you were there?
Yeah, so beyond that, something that I wanted to talk about too is just the way that designers and retailers can activate space. When we were walking through each of the different spaces, the hallway that brought you from one space to the other was designed. So an example of that is right here. You can see this beautiful book archway that brought you in. And that was an Instagrammable moment just to take you into the next space for you to shop. So there was this really interesting way to think about layout planning and store design in a way that you can just keep the excitement. A lot of times when we're looking at store design, we're thinking about heightened moments of positivity and ways that you can disrupt that in the store. They kept people optimistic and positive the entire time. There was no down in the store other than when you were maybe waiting in line for the register. But even then, they used the idea of waiting in line to get people deeper into the experience. One example you can see here, and I kind of view this as surprise and delight as one aspect of the experience, but surprise and delight in the waiting line especially. They had an example where there was a life-size cutout of Rubeus Haggard that you were able to go into his shoes and compare your size to what he was as a giant in the books. And so that alone got you to step outside and do something that just kept that excitement up. And it's really important as a retailer to think about areas where you can disrupt and just change people's mindset and emotions.
That's fantastic. So a lot of excitement there. It's great to see how they engage at every level. A lot of planning, obviously.
Yeah, for sure. That actually reminds me, and this can be added to the surprise and delight section, You can also see here that it was not only the bathroom line that was activated in the waiting line, but it was also the elevators. So they actually showcased an area of the book. There were the elevator that you can see opening here. When it was closed, it was the fireplaces in the book. And when it opened into the Flu network. So this brought you into something that was deep into the storytelling of the book that only if you were there and you understood, you would be able to see it come to life. So people were just riding the elevator to get downstairs, further getting into the journey of the store and buying more stuff in return. So you can also see, this is on the way to the elevator. You can see a tree here. And what was really cool about the tree is it wasn't just any tree. It was a tree from the book. And there were little cutouts in the tree with Harry Potter's eyeglasses that you would look into the tree and be able to see characters from the book inside of the tree. So they were not thinking traditional when it came to fixture design and store design. And you can just see that through all of these examples.
Could we possibly turn and look at some maybe the operational tactics and what we can learn from how the store ran as a retail store?
Yes. So I love talking about this topic, and I mean, operations is something that a lot of designers don't like to talk about, but it's really important. And when we think about operations, something that I think is incredibly important is when you get into like store training and the store associates. These store associates were not your traditionally trained store associates. They were overly joyous friends of the Harry Potter brand that were huge fans themselves. And if I had to look at the playbook for these store associates, soft selling was 100% part of their approach. So you can see that they armed the retail associates with actual games and ideas that they can start to seed to get people to have that sense of play through the stores. So one example here is when it comes to the digital screens. I'll get into digital screens in a second, but there's one particular digital screen that could only be activated, which you can see here, through a store associate kind of explaining what the rules of the land are. So you can see here a store associate taking through our group. It was essentially a rounded digital screen that you look down on that had you play with the different character wands, and two characters that were like-minded in the book that were part of the same house. If you were on either side of the character wands, it would reveal an incredible hologram inside of the digital screen. So there was a sense of the store associate not only walking us through how that would work, but how to also purchase your own character wands once you're done with it. So there was a sense just from a pure selling strategy to use the store associate to give tidbits of information that would therefore make people more emotionally connected after they went through that, and to buy a character wand themselves. So I thought that was really powerful. It almost took like an Apple educational approach to the way that store associates were training, and then to also increase that average order value in store.
Yes, it's pretty difficult for retailers to have the guts possibly to really kind of invest in staff in this way. But we can definitely see the benefits when retailers do recruit and train the right staff. See what the impact is.
For sure. I mean, they were loving their experience. So I think it's not every day that you wait 2 hours to get into a store, but you can actually work there all day for 10 hours. So I'm sure it wasn't hard for them to find the right talent for this. But that actually reminds me of when we talk about the queuing. So we're obviously in the age of a post-pandemic world, and it's really important to continue to maintain less amount of people in the stores. So they actually had a queue, which you can see out here. There was 493 people in my queue when I started. And what was really nice about it is that I was able to check in at any given time how many more minutes were left in the queue. So like I said in previous videos, being able to keep the emotional high alive is really important. So by integrating in the future, I imagine they'll integrate the queue into the Harry Potter app. So people are starting to play and get a sense of what is inside while they're waiting their turn to get inside. But it also, I imagine, increases dwell time, not only because there's incredible experiences in the store, but because you've waited your turn to get inside while also collecting customer information. So I'm always trying to push appointment-based strategy for retailers, because it's just so hard to get information these days from your customers that can allow that, like, a browse mentality to be converted into a sale later. And this was one fantastic way to do that.
Okay, are there any other kind of features that we should be noting?
Yeah, I would say that one of the items that I haven't really touched on yet is localization. From an operational tactic, attachment for customers were also built through bringing aspects of the book around Manhattan and New York. So aspects of the book that talk about Manhattan, and created custom limited edition collab and gear associated with New York. So you might have a 1,000-store rollout in your strategy, and localization shouldn't be ignored. There's going to be a large subset of your customers that are from that location that are going to want to get something extra special. So not only was this articulating aspects of the book, but New York was alive and well with some of their main items that they had on the floor.
I think some of our audience are going to look at this and think, well, I don't have the investment, I don't have the budget to kind of create an experience as fantastic as this. And that's understandable because of different size stores, retailers, brands. Any other operational aspects that we should really take note of here?
So the other aspect that I wanted to talk about that was a really important part to this experience was the use of a store companion app. If any of you guys are on the Harry Potter app, standalone from the store, it's an incredible app and it has a lot of layers of the experience. But from an operational strategy, the app and the tactics that they had for activating the store within the app brought an increased dwell time. They ended up using gamification in the app to be able to unlock. You can see right here, they had a series of QR codes embedded within the props in the store that were on both floors of the experience. So not only were they using this as a way to encourage people that were going through the store to scan and find different codes that were embedded within each of these props, but it told information that was a lot easier to tell through a digital app than it was to tell through signage alone. So it kept people's interest and really started to bring the store to life through videos that were featured in the actual films, as well as a deeper knowledge about the props and some of those products that were on the shelves. From a gamification approach, as you were going through this, there were different codes and you could collect all of the codes and unlock a gift in the store to just keep that positivity up and have fans just run through the store for the next 2 hours and get really excited with that sense of discovery and exploration. It was really awesome, but one of the best uses of a store companion app that I've seen to date.
Well, Gab, really appreciate you taking us through these experiences today, helping us understand. It's been really revealing, and obviously looking at these experiences through the eyes of a retail designer is unique and super helpful for our audience of retailers and brand executives. So thank you again.
Thank you for having me, Piers. It was a lot of fun.
That's great. Gab Beta, creative director and co-founder of Whereabout Studio. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you'd like Gabriela or the PSFK team to create a special innovation tour of any city, check the details, including contact information, on the services page at psfk.com.